right. Well, welcome back to the Harbor.Church podcast.
Welcome.
It's Pastor Josh and Kaleigh.
Let's go.
And if you don't know this, Kaleigh is my wife.
My wife. You would think, some people think that it's Katie Rose.
You know?
But that's not. It's me.
Katie Rose is way nicer to me.
They think that because Katie Rose is so pleasant and helpful to you. And I'm generally...
Which is funny because Katie also, busts my chops all the time, but they haven't watched us interact. So
that's true.
Although we made a commitment prior to starting our first ever podcast
No, that sounds
together.
bad. What you're about to say sounds bad.
Well, one, I'm saying that this is our first time doing a podcast together. You've done podcasts and I've done podcasts, but this episode is our first podcast together.
Without Katie Rose.
Okay.
Which I think is important.
Yeah. Totally third wheeling it.
Finally got rid of her.
Whatever. As Katie's getting ready for the African missions trip and stuff, gave you and I a chance to do an episode together, which is always exciting.
Yep.
But we committed before this thing started that we were going to do what?
Sometimes
okay, this is weird. We're going to be nice to each other.
Sometimes I think our love language is like we're just very sarcastic and mean
we
to
are
each
sarcastic,
other.
and people like New Englanders get it, but I think some of our listeners outside of New England might think like, oh, they're not in love, and we are madly in love.
We're so in love. You're the only besides Katie Rose, you're kind of one of the only people I really like.
Wow, a lot of people listen to this.
That's not true.
You just hurt their feelings.
That's not true. I love so many people, but I love you the most.
All right. Well, thank you. You should. I am your husband, and I love that we get to sit together and talk. Now, you and I interact on my messages a lot. Mm-hmm. Sometimes complimentary, and usually you help me see some things that maybe I wouldn't have seen normally, and that's what I love about the insight that God's given you. And I love that we can kind of break some things down. I've been working through this parable series that we're in, and a lot of times I talk to you about stuff that I'm thinking through, and you help me process it. And then this message came up, and I'm just curious. What was your thoughts on this past weekend's message? Maybe some of the people didn't hear it. If you want to recap it for them real quick, then I've got a couple more questions for you.
Okay. Yeah. So
this is going to see how well you paid attention.
Yeah, I was going to say this has nothing to do with our listeners and has everything to do with you being like you weren't even paying attention.
All right, stop stalling.
But surprise, I was.
Yeah, let's go. Come on.
So we're in the parable series.
Yes, that part I already said. Okay.
And this week's parable, you were talking about.
I will give you $100 if you can tell me where I was at in the Bible.
In the Bible?
Yeah, more than in the Bible.
So you were talking about
Yes.
It's in Matthew.
Yeah, good job. You got the book right. Now, what chapter?
Mm-hmm. It was one of them.
Yes. Go on.
Was it 21?
Ooh, so close. It was 22.
Oh, I knew it.
All right, go ahead.
Sorry. Okay, so
in Matthew 22.
So Matthew 22, which I knew and was testing you. You nailed it. Talking about the parable where Jesus is telling the story of a king who is having a wedding, and he invites kind of like first round of guests, and they all say no. And so he sends an invite out to kind of every rando in the streets, and they all come in. But then the story zooms in on this interaction where he finds one particular guest who isn't wearing the appropriate clothes, and he throws him out of the wedding. And yeah, when I first heard you were doing this parable, I was like, oh, cool. So you want people to be confused and upset. Because this is kind of a tough...
It is not an easy...
some of the parables are like sweet. It's like, oh, and then the son comes home. Yay. This one's like...
reconciliation.
So anyway, his clothes are wrong and we kicked him out. You're just kind of like...
Yes. It feels like, do I get kicked out of heaven for wearing the wrong brand of clothing?
Which, no. Spoiler alert, no.
But
But on its face, that's kind of... It's a metaphor.
So, well, right. So for the people who maybe this is the first time they've even heard of this. So this is Matthew 22, 1 through 14. There's another very similar, almost, most people say it's the exact same one, just told a little bit differently through Luke, where they emphasize some of the excuses that people make.
Right.
But ultimately, Jesus is driving home the same point.
Yeah.
And how would you paraphrase the point that Jesus is making from the message?
Well, one very tall, attractive pastor said very recently that...
She's talking about me.
I'm talking about Craig Groeschel. No.
Dang it.
Not again. No, but
I think I'm taller than Craig. I'm not gonna lie.
Can we? Do we have James? Chris? Jamie? Jamie? Can we fact check? Is Josh taller than Craig Groeschel?
Bobby's on it.
Thanks, Bobby.
Bobby's on it. Bobby is our Jamie.
Bobby's our Jamie. Perfect. So we'll stand by on that. But sorry. Oh, what you had said is that the invitation is by grace, but acceptance comes through surrender. And I think that kind of like sums up the whole.
Hey, Craig Groeschel is 6'1". I am 6'3". Beat him. Got him.
Take that, Craig.
Of all the things that Craig can do better than me,
he's
I am a little bit
best-selling author, purple belt in jiu-jitsu. Didn't crack
pastor
didn't crack 6'2" though. So
you know what's up, shorty?
How's the weather down there?
Yeah, I don't know. All the short kings listening to this, like Craig, sucks to be you guys.
That sucks.
All right, go on. Sorry,
but
back to the spiritual part.
Back to the spiritual things. But yeah, so the idea that an entrance to the party is through surrender, and I think that really sums up the whole point of it well. And obviously, as we were talking about, like this man being kicked out of the wedding because of his clothing was a metaphor. And one of the cool cultural things that I thought you brought up that I really think colors the story well is that, like, in that day and age, the king as the host would have supplied clothing for anyone who didn't have it. So wedding garments, like something, robes or whatever, which actually, we kind of experienced this. We were visiting a couple of mosques in Egypt, and like they actually had like racks of robes.
Yes.
As you're going into the temple,
in case you showed up with the wrong attire,
which we did, and so you could put it on. Anyway, so that was a cool.
That would have been a cool illustration. I totally dropped the ball on.
We could have. Yeah, we could have used that. That would have been
thanks.
Cool.
Day late and a dollar short. Cool.
Hey, we did it now though, so we got there. But it's the same idea. Like, yeah, we showed up to this temple, and they weren't like, "Oh, your clothes." They're like, "Hey, you need to put these on." Well, if we had said, "No, thanks, we're good,"
we're gonna keep wearing the things that we are.
Right? They would have been
disrespectful.
Exactly, and they would have been like, "You can leave now. Your choices are welcome to come in. We'll give you what you need. But if you're going to reject our standard, if you're going to reject our offer, then you can't be in here." Part of the whole requirements of being in here is surrendering to the like mode of operation in this place, and that's
I think
kind of what that picture is.
That's a key part, because I've read commentaries where people misread it, and they're like, "This is the king is being unfair, and this guy didn't know any better."
Yeah.
The whole part where Jesus says the king asked him, "Why are you here without any clothes?" and the guy had no reply.
Right.
Was because he knew he had done wrong.
Right.
The guy trying to get into the party without putting on the right clothes was not a matter of ignorance. He wasn't unaware that he needed better clothes.
Yeah.
He was rebelling against the king's authority. And so the metaphor is you and I are human beings. When we try to do things our own way and tell God that like we've got it and what his standard isn't how we're going to live, what we're doing is we're rebelling against a higher authority, against his righteousness, and that's where sin comes in.
Right.
And Jesus is driving this point that, like, hey, in heaven there isn't a spirit of rebellion in heaven. You know? You don't have to do anything. Like, you got invited to the party not because you're worthy, but because the King imparts that, gifts that to you. Jesus imputed his righteousness to us. We didn't earn it, but if I'm covered with what Christ has done for me, I get access to heaven. Not because Josh Adams is really good,
right?
But because Jesus is perfect,
right? And that's recognition. Putting on those robes in the story and like metaphorically here, it's a recognition of Christ's authority,
right? So what's the hard part? What is it that when you say that, when I say that, what is it that you hear or you think the average person hears that makes them go, yeah, I don't like that?
Well, I mean, I think it's that whole key piece of it's two parts. It's surrender and it's admitting Christ's authority. And those are two things that as people we're like the most allergic to. Like we hate it. We don't like this idea. You hear it all the time, right? People like, well, why do I need Jesus? I'm a good person. Or like, I don't need Christianity to tell me how to be a good person. I know how to do that, on my own. Like, and there's this offense that takes place when you say like, no, you're not good enough on your own. Some people, there's two kinds of people. There are those people that are like, I've done so many bad things, and I know that I could never I deserve to go to hell. I could never be in a relationship with God. He would never want to see me. And those people exist. If I'm honest, more commonly in my life, maybe
it's
not
people who think they're good enough.
Exactly.
They've got their own clothes. Their own clothes are good enough.
They're like,
I don't
good.
need anything from God.
Exactly. They're like, if heaven,
and you don't
if heaven
realize
exists,
how far short you fall.
Exactly. We make the mistake of thinking that our conscience is sensitive enough on its own to pick up on every transgression there could be against a righteous and holy God, and it isn't. We think that our general working, knowledge and conscience is a lot more sensitive than it is. And I don't think, and I say this because I'd imagine you're in the same boat. The longer I've walked with Jesus, the more things come up that I go, oh man, I never really thought of that as wrong, or I never thought of that as a problem. And all of a sudden, that really weighs on my conscience. And it's this increasing sensitivity of oh, there's just these things that I didn't even realize weren't good. And now that I'm seeing them through the light of the lens of the kingdom of heaven, I see it differently. And I think people don't want to do that.
Well, I think there's that element. You hit the nail on the head. There is that element of people saying, I don't want to do that. There is the other side of people going oh yeah, I'm ready. I'm willing to do it. I'm willing to do it. And for a moment or for a stretch of their life, they will surrender, conform, have the humility. But then the Bible talks about our walk with Jesus being a continual effort to take off the old and put on the new.
Yeah.
And so I think there are people who will never, they've never done it. They never want to do it.
Yeah.
But then I think there's a whole bunch of our listeners, you and I included in this, where yes, I know I need to put on Christ. I know I need to have something different. And so I'll surrender. I'll humble myself. I'll ask for forgiveness, surrender to salvation, that kind of thing. But then any given day, my old flesh says, put this back on. Put back on the thing that you gave away to God, the thing that you surrendered to Christ.
Yeah.
And whether that's, you know me better than anybody else on the planet. Whether that's an anger or a judgmental thing or an insecurity or some temptation that we all fall into them.
Yeah.
How easy it is to put that back on. And I think that's where a lot of people struggle. Now, when we look at this, all right, so I'm not supposed to have these temptations. I'm supposed to be at the party. I'm supposed to be doing good things. Then aren't you kind of advocating, is Jesus kind of saying that heaven is based on, I got to do a lot of good things. There's got to be a lot of accomplishments then in order for me to stay in heaven, because if I'm quote unquote, as you just said, surrendered, then I've got this plethora of good things on my account. My resume in heaven looks like Josh, who has accomplished a bunch of things for Jesus. Right. So doesn't that then mean that good works is what we're really talking about? We're not really talking about faith. We're really talking about accomplishments. Yeah.
And obviously, the answer's no. But I think one thing, I think sometimes we can get a little bit funny with parables, and people can almost become a little bit superstitious with them. Jesus was telling simple stories to simple people to communicate really complex ideas.
Yep.
So, and I'm not saying these parables are really cool and there's really you can pull them apart and get some cool stuff.
Yeah.
But I think that we should resist the temptation to get weird about it, if that makes sense, and be okay, well, he was invited to the party, and that he put all the ropes, and that he got it, and that it's this is look at the whole thing on its face.
Who do you know that sounds like that?
No one that I've ever talked to.
Okay,
that's the voice.
Let's keep going.
No, this is the everyone recognizes this as the voice of a schmuck.
Is this the internal voice of the person?
But it doesn't sound like anyone, so no one's offended. No one's
there are two people that are so offended. They're I'm turning this up.
One person is I have a really specific
turning this podcast
vocal
off
disorder that causes me to talk like this. It's like Hermie from Rudolph. Wow. I want to be a dentist.
Well, this is why we can't do a podcast together.
I'm on one today.
I don't know. We're too ADD of people.
Yeah,
we got the same thing. We need a Katie Rose.
Katie, come back.
It's off the rails.
We thought we could be trusted without you, and we can't.
Okay, so go.
Sorry.
the people that get too lost in the sauce trying to make every part of the parable.
Absolutely. So part of it is that, like, I think there's a practical, as far as like just instructions for like reading scripture, like don't get superstitious about it. Jesus wasn't telling these stories in order to, it actually says like he used these things to confound the wise and to like uplift the humble. Like these are simple stories for simple people. But getting away from that, like kind of just like the literary aspect of it, putting on the robes, as we talked about, it's this submission to Christ's authority. What it is saying, I recognize God's law as the correct law, as the holy law. And
the clothing is submission.
The clothing is
humility.
submission. And I believe the Bible teaches, I know you've, like, when we are in heaven, that's the final, there is no more sin nature. Like, that's the final, like, there is no more wrestling of like, oh, I kind of want to do bad things. I kind of want to do good things. But until then, we're always going to have that internal wrestling. And our entrance into heaven doesn't depend on, oh, how many times we slipped up and let the bad side win and like, oh, we did more good things than bad things. Our admittance into heaven is our recognition of God's law is higher than mine. Jesus is the only one who fulfills that law, and that's what I'm surrendering to. I'm going to make a million mistakes between now and the day that I meet Jesus, but I recognize that they're mistakes. What I'm not doing is saying...
Coming up with excuses.
Yeah, what I'm not doing is saying, well, yeah, I did that, but you know what? I think that was actually a good thing to do. Or you know what? I'm going to keep doing that. What it is being able to say, I did something that was against God's best for my life, and I recognize that because I recognize his authority to tell me that.
Yeah.
And that's the difference. This is where I think I finally get to bring in a jiu-jitsu metaphor. Is this my moment?
I can't wait.
I've been waiting. I've been trying to shoehorn one into like the past 7 podcasts.
Listen, if there's nothing else I can do besides set you up to talk about jiu-jitsu.
Thank you so much. I was really hoping. Well, but okay,
you want to know how you can tell if somebody does jiu-jitsu?
I'll just let you have your punchline. What is it?
They'll tell you.
Yeah. You also do it.
Yes, I know. I don't talk about jiu-jitsu as much as you do.
No, well, you don't do it as much as I do.
Oh, that's true.
I got him. Anyway, sorry.
Sorry, some of us work for a living.
Oh, no.
No, what?
Oh,
you do. I'm just teasing. I'm just teasing. That was my insecurity coming out there. Go ahead. Tell us all about how much of a kick butt jiu-jitsu.
No, I'm not. I exist purely as a punching bag for others. But like in jiu-jitsu, we're really...
She's not talking about me. I just need to clarify. We don't do jiu-jitsu together.
No, we don't.
We go to two totally different gyms.
That's true.
You got a lot of the girls in your class, in your gym. They're like already ahead of you. They're
all of them, not some of them. All of them. What the word you're thinking is all of them.
Well, you know, I don't think they beat you up. I just think you know, you just don't have as much experience as them.
But it's so. This metaphor has gone off the rails because we've gone off the rails.
Yes. No, that's back to you're trying to explain to our listeners.
But we understand this in any, like, for me, it's jiu-jitsu. We understand this in any like coaching relationship. Like me saying, okay, hey, I'm part of this team. I'm doing this sport. I'm allowed to train in this place. Doesn't mean, hey, you're never going to do a stupid thing you know you shouldn't do. Like, I'm going to make mistakes. I'm going to get taken out. Like, I'm going to get submitted. Like, that's going to happen. The difference is when someone goes, hey, you shouldn't do that here. Here, you should, make sure you're getting your arm in there. You should be, like, what I don't do is, well, that's not what I'm going to do. Like.
That's the arrogance.
That's arrogant. And that's the difference.
Or stubbornness.
Exactly.
I guess it could be like, I still think if I keep doing this, I'll win. And you're like,
right.
If you keep doing that, your opponent's going to keep tapping you. Like,
and the
gonna
promise,
freaking lose every time.
Right. And the promise of, the gym is, hey, if you show up and you submit to the teaching here, eventually you will progress. Eventually you will get better. Eventually you won't get taken out by all of these like stupid little things that keep taking you out. And it doesn't mean you won't have a bad day and get tripped up, but it means that you've submitted to that process and you're getting better a little bit every day. And I think that's what it means to come under the authority of Christ.
So let's talk about, let's bring it back to the people who don't do jiu-jitsu. Hard to believe, I know.
Is it nice having a lower back that feels good? Is that fun?
So what is it inside of a Kaleigh or a Josh? You can speak for me or any one of our listeners who, if the application of the story is that the king invites everybody, even the ones who weren't royal, even the ones who didn't deserve to be there, He sends his servants into the highways, into the, he says, literally, go get into the alleys, the back streets, grab everybody. And it says they bring good and bad alike.
Yep.
Like, what does that look like? What is it inside of a person that when I've been plucked out of the gutter and brought into the banquet hall, what is it inside of us that still says, cool, I'm not going to wear these clothes?
Yeah.
And I know we've alluded to it, but like on a more like in your own life or what you see in me, where is it that we push back? Because we said stubbornness, we said arrogance. Other people listening, maybe they're doing this and they don't recognize it. Maybe it's ignorance.
Yeah.
But whatever this is, like, speak to that for a second. How does somebody recognize this in themselves?
Yeah.
Like, you're listening and you're like, I'm a pretty good Christian. I'm doing great. Like, I love God. I love me some Jesus. I go to church. I read my Bible.
Yep.
You might still be sitting at the table in your own clothes, though.
100%.
And what are some areas that people do that, or how would we recognize it, and what's causing it?
Yeah. I think almost everything for most people comes down to either comfort or control. I think that most people are driven by either a desire for comfort or a desire to control. And if you think about it, like a lot of those vices you talked about, anger, even a lot of your addictions, being in bad relationships or taking things, physically where you shouldn't go, or like even gossip. These things are either wrapped up in, well, this is the way I've always done it. This is how I kind of like.
This is how I cope. This is how I process.
This is how I keep myself from having to experience negative emotions. This is how this is easier. Like this isn't uncomfortable. Or this is how I keep myself safe. My anger is how I protect myself. My selfishness is how I protect myself. Like this is how I make sure that I'm safe. And really, like that's the call of Jesus, is to step.
That's the difference between self-protection and surrender.
Absolutely.
When I surrender, I'm literally laying down my arms. That's what it means. Like I'm putting down all of my defense mechanisms, all of my attack mechanisms, and I'm saying, okay, I'm no longer going to fight. But that means you have to, in order to surrender, you're entrusting a greater power than yourself. It literally is saying, hey, I am not the most powerful person here.
Yeah.
And that's what having a God in your life that isn't you looks like.
Yeah.
And most people around us, probably a lot of people listening to this, they're trying to be the God of their life. They're trying to control their children and making sure nothing bad ever happens to their kids, and their kids have plenty of money and are always happy. Well, those aren't bad goals, but if you're trusting yourself in that, you've now put on the old clothes. You're now somebody who isn't as surrendered to God as you would say they are. Mm-hmm. I think that's easy for you and I to see as parents, and we see that in a lot of other parents.
Absolutely.
It's a control issue.
Yeah.
To the comfort piece, what you said, I thought that was really good. We see a lot of people not stepping out as God's called them to.
Yep.
So if I'm surrendered to God, then that means if he tells me to go somewhere, I go there. If he tells me to do something, I do it.
Yep.
And how many people have you and I talked to? They're not willing to break up with that boyfriend or girlfriend. No. They're not willing to go love their neighbor and spend time. They're not willing to share their testimony. They're not willing to start tithing. They're not willing to forgive their mom or dad for something that happened to them when they were younger. Like there's all of these things that are just uncomfortable.
Yeah. Well,
and so it was like, I don't do it. And I don't think the average person recognizes that's.
Well, what we've said,
wearing the old clothes.
Yeah. What we've said internally is, okay, well, I know that in order to be happy, I need to live in this house, or I need to have this amount of money, or I need to have this person,
list.
I need to have this person in my life. And what we're effectively saying is, I don't trust that God will fulfill his promise to give me life and life abundantly. Like Jesus says, the thief comes to kill, and destroy, but I could come to give them life abundantly.
John 10:10.
Yeah. Every time we close our fists around things, we're effectively saying, God, I don't think that you can make me as happy as my paycheck or this relationship or whatever. And so we seek that comfort, and we aren't willing to lay that all out on the table and say, whatever you want to change, Jesus, it's yours. Because I trust that you will bring joy into my life, even if all of this is gone.
So elaborate on that for a second. What else? Because some people may not see that, but where else could we find that we are doing the exact same thing? Maybe it's not in my job. Maybe it's not in my marriage.
Yeah.
What are some other areas where I take back control? Because we talk a lot at Harbor.Church about being open-handed. And being open-handed means I'm no longer holding on to my time, my talent, my treasure, my testimony.
Yeah.
But when I grab back onto it because it's mine.
Yeah.
In that moment, I am taking the clothes off, the royal robes, and I'm putting back on my gutter clothes because that's what's comfortable. That's my control, however, whatever you said. But what are some more examples? What's something that you've seen either in your own life or in the life of somebody around you that like that's what they're doing? And like I said, I don't know that most of us see it, that we're doing it. We almost need to get confronted by the king going, hey, you're wearing the wrong clothes again.
Right. I mean, I think in today's day and age, 2025, I think so much of it is time. That's probably my number one thing that I feel like I can feel the Holy Spirit like that was not the right answer, is I become very protective of my time. We had one last week. You'd asked me to come in here and like help you with something. And I had the text written out to be like, yeah, sorry, can't, busy. And it was like written out and I was getting ready to send it. And like Holy Spirit was like, no, that's wrong. And I was like, right, that is wrong. Like I'm being protective of my time in a way that's not healthy and God honoring. I'm not looking at my schedule and saying, God, how can I maximize every second that I have to bring you honor and glory and to serve the people around me? I'm looking at it and saying, how can I maximize my schedule to get the most amount of enjoyment, to have the most amount of relaxation, to have the most amount of alone time, which is my favorite thing on the planet. Like, how can I do that instead of, okay, how can I use all this for you?
So I think alone, but with me.
That's what I meant.
Okay, that's what I thought. Because why wouldn't you?
Why would? Yeah, I can't think of no.
No, but
but I think time is a big one. Obviously, like I think we talk about resources and money, and I think a lot of people are quick to be like, I'm not materialistic. But I think time. It's when that person calls you to grab coffee, dude, and like God has put me in this person's life to speak into their life. Like, are you dropping what you had planned that day to go, get the coffee, or are you like, actually, no, that was my Netflix time? You know what I mean? Like, I think time. I think time is a really big one, and I think it's a sneaky one because it feels like the right thing, especially when there's so many conversations about like, oh, you got to protect your peace and you got to set boundaries and you got to have, and like all that's kind of true.
Yeah.
But also, rest comes from Christ, like. Jesus says, come to me and I will give you rest, not huge, like untouched sections of time in your calendar will give you rest, Well,
yeah, I think, you're absolutely right. And I think a lot of us forget that God has a much higher view and he says his ways are higher and the way he thinks is higher. And so we get lost down in the weeds of our life going, it's got to be this has got to be the solution. This has got to be the answer. And that failure to trust is what's often driving us away. But to keep it back to the where we were talking about our marriage, and I think for other married people here or just those who are dealing with family members, like there's times where you and I will be in a disagreement about something. So it's so easy for me to want to pick up the old clothes of fighting to win an argument versus fighting for our marriage to be better. And so you can call that pride, stubbornness. It's a little bit of everything. But it's so easy and so comfortable for me to slip on the old clothes of let me put Kaleigh down so that I look smarter. Let me attack her position or her point so that I win this argument. Let me be frustrated. Let me be disappointed. Let me immediately start thinking the worst about you. Yeah. Because I disagree with you. I'm like, oh, you're an idiot. How quickly do we divert back to a sinful outlook or a fleshly response? Because that is that comfort, that is that part that's like, that's what I know, and that's what I am tempted to believe will help me out. And so putting on the wedding clothes, putting on that surrender, putting on that, like, God, I'm trusting you. Yeah. Man, that is so hard for somebody like me who not only doesn't want to lose the argument, but it wants dramatically to make sure that like I'm progressing forward. Yeah. And it's such this paradox. Like I think I'm moving the ball forward and I'm actually losing ground when I put on my old habits and I put back on my old attitude. because I thought like, oh, look, that was successful. That's how you win arguments. That's how you gain traction.
Yeah.
And it was doing more damage to our marriage. It was doing more damage in my relationships around me.
Yeah.
Reverting back to that easy, like I can win an argument.
Yeah.
And I can cut somebody down, and I can verbally joust most people.
Yeah.
And not doing that and biting my tongue and being patient and forgiving and being open-minded and hearing people out, that is not normal in my character. And so that's something that the more I become like Christ, the more that happens.
Yep.
But that has to be a continual putting on
Yep.
of God's righteousness versus my own.
And it's a reversal of I think a good way, or at least how I think about it a lot, is in terms of like what's my source here. And, going back to the marriage example, talking about it, I'm not necessarily like an anger person. That's kind of not my go-to. Like I definitely, my thing is I'll fall into like more depression or like, just getting like very like withdrawn or upset. And I know for a long time, like some of that is I would let myself fall into this habit of seeing you as my source. So if you were mad at me, or if we weren't in a good place, or if you weren't being particularly like patient or loving with me,
I can't imagine that's ever happened.
which is only hypothetical. I can't even think of a time.
Thank you. Yep.
But if that was happening, like it would drain the life out of me, and I would allow it to, because I was like, well, Josh is my source of like love. Josh is my source of happiness. Josh is where, and he's not, and then that calcifies into anger, because now what I'm doing is I'm seeing you as my source, and now I'm mad at you even
for
more
under-delivering.
So like now not only are we fighting, but also like he's mad, and there's the thing itself, but then there's like, now he's not fulfilling on his promise to like fulfill all of my, desires and need for like love and acceptance and, affirmation and all this stuff. And that, and I kept going back to that, because it felt like, well, if I let go of that, then I'm not holding him to task on that. And then I'm just going to be like an empty shell. There's nothing to fill me up. But then instead going, no, I'm putting on the robes of Christ's righteousness. Like Jesus is my source. Like if Josh disappears tomorrow, if Josh never says another kind word to me, like the fruit of the Spirit is love, joy, peace, patience. Like that's my source, which then frees me to be like, hey, we're just fighting. And like, I believe that God can restore the sweetness of our relationship, but like, how can I serve you? That's what allows me to serve you in that moment. And like, that's such a reversal, of when I'm taking off that robe, and
that's not unique though. I mean, it's super helpful for marriages, but that's not even unique to a husband and wife.
No, not at all.
I mean, you think about the average person who has burned a bridge with a friend, a coworker, a family member.
Yep.
There's a lot of people listening. There's somebody they haven't talked to in a long time.
Yep.
Because they're like, that person's hurt me. That person betrayed me. That person lied about me.
Yep.
Maybe they are partly to blame or solely to blame, or in their minds, they didn't do anything wrong. Regardless, there's relationships that have crumbled.
Yep.
We know that that's not God's best for us.
Yep.
But in what it would take for me to find my source of joy and fulfillment, or even confidence. And I say that because like there's people who are like, I can't forgive you because then you'll think you were right, and then I won't have any leg to stand on for me believing I'm right. Well, I don't need Kaleigh or anybody else, including that former friend or that enemy. If I'm not looking to you to validate me, if I'm not looking to you to congratulate me or to prop me up or to let me feel a certain way, when I find all of that in Christ and I make that my identity, then forgiving you isn't that big of a deal.
No.
But so many people struggle to forgive because they're like, I can't let go of my pain or my bitterness because that's what they're holding on to that gives them a sense of control, a sense of identity.
And what it ultimately is they're saying like there's an emotional transgression. There's an emotional debt there. This person took something from me, and if I forgive them, I won't get that back. But when we instead go, well, wait, Jesus erased the debt between me and God, which means he forgave my debt, which means he also forgives your debt. And it's not possible for someone to take something from me.
Well, how many parables are there about that exact same thing?
Yeah, it's not possible for someone to take something from me emotionally or spiritually that Christ can't restore. So then I no longer need to hold them to account because I'm not missing anything. So now it's easier.
It's not contingent upon them
Exactly.
anymore.
Me being made whole isn't contingent on you making it right. So now it's easy to forgive.
That's huge because we might be talking to somebody right now who the person they failed to forgive is dead.
Yeah.
Like I never forgave that person. I never made amends with that person.
Yeah.
All right. I understand that's a weight on your shoulders, but you don't have to. You don't have to go back in time in order to find what's missing right now. That closure, that way forward, that, like you said, man, finding your identity, finding that peace.
Absolutely.
It doesn't come from them.
It doesn't come from anyone.
Because the person who offended you, they might live on the other side of the country or the other side of the planet. You might have no way to get a hold of them. There might have been somebody from your childhood. You're like, I don't even know how, you don't need to. Like if that happens and your paths crossed, by all means, forgive them, make sure you go out of your way. But if you're like, I don't know who they are or where they are or if they're still alive, all right, forgiving somebody isn't about doing something in their life. That's releasing your heart from holding on to bitterness and to resentment. So,
and you're not waiting for someone else to get their act together.
Yes.
In order for Christ's work to be able to be completed in you. So
because that person might
you
always be a jerk or never, say I'm sorry.
Yeah, and the Holy Spirit provides everything that we need for love and joy and a full, rich life that's not contingent on anybody else. So what is it we're holding other people to task for? If that
there's
person
that underlying belief that it's going to change.
Yeah. And I think that a lot of times is like, we put on our old self because we're like, well, that's, we're kind of putting on like the mafia boss, like, all right, I'm going to go, take what's mine. And it's like, oh, that's not the system anymore. That's not, your life isn't a series of like collecting emotional debts. Like you're good.
Yeah. You're not the Tony Soprano of emotional collections. You're like
gabagool.
You can let other people have their thing, which by the way, this works in politics. This works in family feuds. This works in neighbors that, you can't stand and haven't talked to. Like all of these things, you can let go of that and you don't have to be wrapped up with the cancer that is insecurity or bitterness or frustrations. And, like you see this when people like they're obsessed with their enemies. They have to follow them on Facebook or on Instagram or on TikTok. They have to watch what they're doing. They have to critique. They're always gossiping. They're always negative. Like, why are you allowing that person to have so much power in your life to ruin your life? Your happiness is not contingent on them. You are trying to mine something out of like an empty well. And your sin nature is telling you that your gossip and your anger and your frustration is going to somehow give you back what was lost, and it's not. Like that's an empty well. Like there's nothing at the bottom of that mine. You're wasting your time and you're literally going to an empty source when what it is that you're looking for is yours, tenfold through Jesus. Like and it's Absolutely.
Free and it's a lot sweeter and it's a lot freer.
Well, not only that, but it's freer. It's a platform. It's a foundation that you can build everything else on.
Yeah.
So it sets you free, but then it allows you to actually go higher than you had before.
Yep.
So in closing, because I wanted you to be able to speak to this before we let our listeners go. If I'm hearing this and I'm hearing what you're saying, and maybe my thing is, arguments with family members. Maybe my thing is insecurity at work. Maybe my thing is, learning to forgive somebody, dealing with my addictions, whatever. What would you say is an indicator of somebody who like, what's either a thought process or, a clue that somebody is good at or getting better at putting on the righteous robes, putting on the attitude of Christ? Somebody who, like, what's that look like? Like you and I can see in a physical world, somebody who's well-dressed and they're sharp. Yep. You just kind of like, there's just something you go, oh, wow, she's got it. He's got it. Like they are, they know what they're doing. They know how to ensemble an outfit and put it all together. What does it look like in a spiritual sense to see somebody who is dressing the way God's called them to do it.
Yeah.
You know, to put on the righteousness, put on the fruits of the Spirit, as you said, and to take off the other ones. What's that look like? Well, what's a characteristic of people you've met that are just naturally good at making those choices?
I think that one of the biggest ones is emotional self-control. I think that's one of the, to me, that's one of the first signs is when I see someone who I look and I go,
that's a big one.
Ooh, that would have made me really angry. Or like, most people would have gotten really frustrated there, or most people would have like, you know, had a snappy comeback. Like when I see somebody that can take things on the chin and maintain composure and not fake, like not some like Zen, like David Goggins, like you can't touch me, like, but like just a genuine, you can see it. There's a freedom in their spirit of like, I don't think I could get that person angry. Yeah. Like, I don't think I could get that.
How cool is that?
Like, I don't know what it would take to like take that person's joy from them. I'm a big like Galatians, you know, tells us the fruits of the Spirit: love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, and self-control. I got most of those right, probably. But I'm a big nerd on that verse, and I my life really changed, and I started viewing life differently when I started viewing that list more literally. And I stopped viewing it as like this aspirational, like, oh, maybe sometimes I'll feel patience or sometimes I'll feel joy. And I started viewing that as a diagnostic of like, is my life, is my internal, like not the thing that everybody else sees, but like inside my brain, is that marked by love, joy, peace, patience? Because if not, that's my number one, like,
I have left the house.
Flag goes up. I'm
dressed inappropriately.
And when you meet someone, and you can just see it all over them when their internal and when their external speech and their internal monologue is governed by those things, is governed by the Holy Spirit and this spirit of patience and gentleness. Gentleness is such a huge one. Like, I feel like, I don't know, we're sort of veering into like a little bit of like a machismo like culture, and like everybody's so quick to be like, hey, you know, snap back and like tell people off. And I just think gentleness.
Can you do that one more time? What was that?
Was a good snap.
That's kind of Valley Girl of you, but okay, go ahead.
I don't know. I mean, I don't know what that is. I'm young.
Whatever.
But I think when you meet someone whose life is marked by gentleness, like it just stands out. So to me, that's when I see somebody that their like internal and external world is really marked by those fruits of the Spirit, by like an unshakable joy, by what seems like endless patience, by gentleness, by quickness to forgive. That is like an indication of, oh, and it's funny because I think so many people outside of like the church or in certain circles inside would be like, what? Somebody who's really taken all, you know, put all the robes is like, they never drink and they never swear and they only watch Christian movies. And it's like, what a bummer. Like, what a bummer for the sum totality of like the Holy Spirit's work in our lives to be like media consumption and like a couple of topical like things on the surface when like he's really like, you know what I mean? Yeah. That was an aside. I'm sending out strays for no reason. But like, what a bummer to get to heaven and be like, I only said the F word 3 times. But it's like, yeah, well, you were pretty mean to everyone. So. Yeah.
And when was the last time one of your friends or even the waiter that served you received anything from
ever
that was edifying?
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I think a lot of times we're measuring the wrong thing.
Yep.
So in true Josh and Kaleigh fashion, we're over on time, and we didn't even get to 2 of the other questions. Like, we barely scratched the surface on what we were going to talk about. So, but you know what? It was good. It was a good thing just to be reminded of how easy it is to miss the mark on this,
and how much we need Katie Rose.
Yes, which, you know, she would have kept us on task. But you know what? That's cool. Yeah. I'm glad that you guys joined us. I'm so thankful fun. That we get a chance to kind of do this together and hopefully bring a second helping to everybody listening on the podcast. And you know, if you haven't yet, subscribe, like us, follow us, so you get more of this content and share it with some people.
More content exactly like this.
A little teaser real quick. Kaleigh and I hopefully will be doing a sermon together. Like, we'll be back in co-leading a message on well, it'll be in our Ephesians series. Let's just say that. You can figure it out.
If you loved today's tangents and rabbit trails, boy, do we have something in store.
You should hang out in our living room
for you.
This is pretty much all the time for us.
This is kind of, this is what we be doing.
But it's good. It's good. And we're glad that we get to do it. And we're glad that you guys were listening. So let us know how we can encourage you.
Yep.
And we'll be praying for you guys. Thank you again, Kaleigh, for coming out.
Hey, this was so fun. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, I love it. All right.
Fist bump?
Yeah, fist bump. Oh, look at that. Man, we're dorks. All right. On that note, love you guys.
Bye.
Have a good one.